people who swore that they had seen skeletons come out of them, and that for a moment they resumed human appearance, and were going about accusing and cursing those who were guilty of the deicide. I leave them in the entrance hall of the praetorium, which Jesus' two friends enter without so many stupid horrors and fears of contamination, and I go back to Calvary, joining Gamaliel, who by now, exhausted, is climbing the last few meters. He is proceeding, striking his breast. And when he arrives at the first of the two open spaces, he throws himself on the ground, face downwards, a long white form on the yellowish ground, and he says, moaning, the sign! Tell me that you forgive me. A whisper, even only a whisper, to tell me that you hear me and forgive me." I understand that he thinks that Jesus is still alive, and he changes his mind only when a soldier, pushing him with his lance, says, "Get up and be silent. It's of no use. You should have thought of that previously. He is dead, and I, a heathen, am telling you, this man whom you have crucified was really the Son of God." "Dead? Are you dead? Oh!" Gamaliel raises his terrorized face. He tries to see as far up as the top in the twilight. He cannot see much, but he can see enough to realize that Jesus is dead. And he sees the compassionate group that is consoling Mary, and John standing on the left side of the cross and weeping, and Longinus standing straight on the right side, solemn in his respectful posture. He kneels down, stretches his arms out, and weeping says, "It was you. It was you. We can no longer be forgiven. We have asked your blood upon us, and it cries to heaven, and heaven curses us. Oh, but you were mercy. I say to you, I, the destroyed Rabbi of Judah, your blood on us for pity's sake. Sprinkle us with it, because only your blood can impetrate forgiveness for us." And he weeps. And then in a lower voice he confesses his torture. "I have the requested sign, but ages and ages of spiritual blindness are upon my interior sight, and against my present will rises the voice of my proud thought of the past. Have mercy on me. Light of the world, let one of your rays descend on the darkness that did not understand you. I am the old Judean faithful to what I thought was justice, and it was error. I am now a barren land, no longer with any of the ancient trees of the ancient faith, without any seed or stock of the new faith. I am an arid desert. Work the miracle of making a flower that has your name spring up in this poor heart of an old, obstinate Israelite. Since you are the liberator, come into my poor thought, which is a prisoner of formulas. Isaiah says so. He paid for sinners and took upon himself the sins of many. Oh, also mine, Jesus, Nazarene." He stands up. He looks at the cross, which is becoming neater and neater in the light that is clearing up, and then he goes away stooping, aged, destroyed. And on Calvary there is once again silence, just broken by Mary's weeping. The two robbers, worn out by fear, no longer speak. Nicodemus and Joseph arrive back running, and they say that they have Pilate's permission. But Longinus, who is not too trustful, sends a horse soldier to the proconsul to learn what he has to do also with regard to the two robbers. The soldier goes and comes back at a gallop with the order to hand over Jesus and break the legs of the other two by the will of the Jews. Longinus calls the four executioners who are cravenly crouched under the rock, still terrorized by what has happened, and orders them to give the robbers the death blow with a club, which takes place without any protest by Disma, to whom the blow of the club, delivered to his heart, after striking his knees, breaks in half on his lips the name of Jesus in a death rattle. The other robber utters horrible curses. Their death rattles are lugubrious. The four executioners would also like to take care of Jesus, taking him down from the cross, but Joseph and Nicodemus do not allow them. And also Joseph takes off his mantle and tells John to do likewise, and to hold the ladders while they climb them with levers and tongs. Mary stands up trembling, supported by the women, and she approaches the cross. In the meantime, the soldiers, having fulfilled their task, go away, and Longinus, before descending beyond the lower open space, turns round from the height of the black horse to look at Mary and at the crucified. Then the noise of hooves resounds on the stones, and that of the weapons against the armor, and fades away in the distance. The left palm is unnailed. The arm falls along the body, which is now hanging, semi-detached. They tell John to climb up as well, leaving the ladders to the women, and John, after climbing up there, up where Nicodemus was previously, passes Jesus' arm round his neck, and holds it so, hanging completely on his shoulder, embraced at the waist by his arm, and held by the tips of his fingers not to touch the horrible gash of the left hand, which is almost open. When the feet are unnailed, John has to make a great effort to hold and support the body of his master between the cross and his own body. Mary has already placed herself at the foot of the cross, sitting with her back against it, ready to receive her Jesus in her lap. But the unnailing of the right arm is the most difficult operation. Despite all John's efforts, the body is hanging completely forward at the head of the nail, and the head of the nail is deeply sunken in the flesh. And as they do not want to make the wound worse, the two compassionate men work hard. At last, the nail is seized with the tongs and pulled out gently. John has been holding Jesus all the time by the armpits, with his head hanging on his shoulder, while Nicodemus and Joseph get hold of him, one at the thighs, the other at the knees, and they cautiously come down the ladders. Then, when on the ground, they would like to lay him on the sheet that they have spread on their mantles, but Mary wants him. She has opened her mantle, letting it hang on one side, and she is sitting with her knees rather apart to form a cradle for her Jesus. While the disciples are turning around to give her son to her, the crowned head falls back, and the arms hang down towards the ground, and the wounded hands would rub on the soil if the pity of the pious women did not hold them up to prevent that. He is now in his mother's lap, and he looks like a big, tired child who is asleep, all cuddled up in his mother's lap. Mary is holding him with her right arm round the shoulders of her son, and her left one stretched over the abdomen to support him also by the hips. Jesus' head is resting on his mother's shoulder, and she calls him. She calls him in a heart-rending voice. She then detaches him from her shoulder and caresses him with her left hand. She takes and stretches out his hands, and before folding them on his dead body, she kisses them and weeps on their wounds. Then she caresses his cheeks, particularly where they are bruised and swollen. She kisses his sunken eyes, his mouth lightly twisted to the right and half open. She would like to tidy his hair, as she has tidied his beard encrusted with blood, but in doing so she touches the thorns. She stings herself trying to remove that crown, and she wants to do it by herself, with the only hand which is free. And she rejects everybody, saying, "No, no, I will, I will." And she seems to be holding the tender head of a newborn baby with her fingers, so delicately does she do it. And when she succeeds in removing the torturing crown, she bends to cure all the scratches of the thorns with her kisses. With a trembling hand she parts his ruffled hair. She tidies it and weeps, speaking in a low voice, and with her fingers she wipes the tears that drop on the cold body covered with blood, and she thinks of cleaning it with her tears and her veil, which is still round Jesus' loins. And she pulls one end of it towards herself, and she begins to clean and dry the holy limbs with it, and she continually caresses his face, then his hands and his bruised knees, and then reverts to drying his body on which endless tears are dropping. And while doing so, her hand touches the gash on his chest. Her little hand, covered with the linen veil, enters almost completely into the large hole of the wound. Mary bends to see in the dim light which has formed, and she sees the chest torn open and the heart of her son. She utters a cry then. A sword seems to be splitting her heart. She shouts and then throws herself on her son, and she seems dead too. They succor and console her. They want to take her divine dead son away from her, and as she shouts, where shall I put you? In which place safe and worthy of you?" Joseph, all bent in a respectful bow, his open hand pressed against his chest, says, "Take courage, O woman. My sepulchre is new and worthy of a great man. I give it to him. And my friend here, Nicodemus, has already taken the spices to the sepulchre, as he wishes to offer them. But I beg you, as it is getting dark, let us proceed. It is preparation day. Be good, O holy woman." Also John and the women beg her likewise, and Mary allows her son to be removed from her lap, and she stands up distressed while they envelop him in a sheet, begging, "Oh, do it gently." Nicodemus and John at the shoulders, Joseph at the feet, they lift the corpse enveloped not only in the sheet, but resting also on the mantles which act as a stretcher, and they set out down the road. Mary, supported by her sister-in-law and by the Magdalene, goes down towards the sepulchre, followed by Martha, Mary of Zebedee, and Susanna, who have picked up the nails, the tongs, the crown, the sponge, and the cane. On Calvary remain the 3 crosses, the central one of which is bare, and the other 2 have their living trophies, who are dying. And now, says Jesus, pay attention. I spare you the description of the burial which was well described last year on 19th of February 1944, so you will use that one. And PM at the end of it will put Mary's lamentation, which I gave on 4th of October 1944. Then you will put the new visions you see. They are new parts of the Passion, and are to be put very carefully in their places to avoid confusion and lacunae.